Are you an entrepreneur and you want to predict the future? Do you want to figure out what trends are working in your business and what things are going to work and not work? Today, we're going to spend time with Michael Stelzner.
Welcome to the Coach U Show, where we learn directly from Dennis Yu and special guests.
Michael Stelzner, who is the founder of Social Media Examiner, and we're going to examine how he was able to spot these particular trends. And even before that, he was the #1 white paper guy. How did he know that that was what's going to happen in the future, that was going to grow? How did he know that social media marketing and all the subtopics of social media marketing would become popular so we could build the biggest conference, the biggest podcast, the biggest website, the biggest in every one of these categories? And then how did he know that based on that, he would completely shift directions and move into things like NFTs? So I want you to listen carefully as we pick Michael Stelzner's brain on how he's able to spot trends, because I have spent time with Michael over the years and he's taught me about this methodical process. It doesn't involve a magic 8-ball. It involves using data, looking at search engines and seeing Google Analytics, looking at attendee feedback to figure out what the tracks are going to be and what topics he's going to have, to figure out who's going to be on his podcast. And I want you to see how someone like Michael Stelzner approaches data so you can do the same thing in your industry. Michael, it's such an honor to spend time with you.
How do I do it? I'm going to tell you a little story. Yesterday, I sent an email out to 2 of my customer bases and my newsletter list. And I asked 3 simple questions. It was like, I would like to learn more about. And the first one was Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all the other platforms. And they had to say strongly disagree all the way to strongly agree. Okay. Then I did the same thing in another topical area, and I did the same thing in another topical area. And that research has come in today, and I sent it out to my team, and I said, hey team, this is what we need to be focusing on for the guests that we get on our podcast, for the people that speak on our stages, for the product development we're doing for next year. So the way that I do research is I ask really smart questions of the right audience. I segment those audiences and I look at what they're most interested in learning about. And I let that kind of develop the downstream objectives of what we're doing. And I've been doing this since 2008. Every single year, multiple times a year across multiple product lines. So I know it sounds kind of complex, but at a very simple level, it's really just all about asking people what they want to learn more about, with the hypothesis that some of those people want to pay more to learn, and others will not want to pay more to learn. And then we just take that data and we funnel it through my brain and a series of other things, and that's how we map out what we're going to do next.
Now, I remember a few years ago, you did the same kind of research, because I love to see the emails that you send out, because I learn.
Yes.
And you found that Facebook advertising seemed to be the standout item that you would talk about at Social Media Marketing World. You had a Facebook Ad Summit. That seemed like that was a great success. You had tons of tracks on this. And so I thought, well, that's awesome. It makes sense that Stelzner has the data to figure out here's what attendees want. But then you did some other stuff like becoming well-known, which I thought was great because I bought that course. But even with all your data, that wasn't a success. So how do you distinguish between when it worked and when it didn't?
Okay, so this is an important question, right? Sometimes the data will be interpreted by you, and you will read the data in such a way that you want to read the data, and you will ignore all the other data that's around you.
Your own bias.
Said another way, we look for what we're interested in, and when we find it, we say the whole world is interested in it, and this is the mistake that I made. It kind of happens when you buy a car. Let's say you buy a brand new Toyota, a Camry, and then all of a sudden you notice everyone's driving Camrys, and you're like, guess what? Those Camrys are always there. You never saw them before, okay? It's like
confirmation bias.
You never saw them before. So in the case of this course that I did, people were interested in the concepts, but they weren't willing to pay money for it, okay? And this is the part about entrepreneurship and marketing that is really important. Interest doesn't equal intent, okay? Interest does not equal intent. So when someone's interested in learning about something, it doesn't mean they're going to buy it, okay? So there's a lot of people that are interested in Web3 strategy right now. And I happen to know a lot about this because I'm focusing on Web3. But it doesn't mean they're willing to pay a dime to go to a conference to learn about it, okay? Because there's phases that we are in when we are on a journey. There's the curiosity phase, right? Where I want to learn about it. And that just means, okay, I'm interested in it. Let's say I'm strongly interested in it. It still doesn't mean I'm going to take my credit card out of my wallet and spend $50 or $1,000 or $10,000. So this is the hardest part to predict, right? And we don't want to ask these questions in our survey, how much would you be willing to pay?
Right.
Because then all of a sudden it just kind of dilutes the whole purpose of the survey, right? So what I do with my data is I'm a content marketer at my core. So what I do is I want to attract an audience to me. So I create content about the things that they're interested in. Then what I do is I capture a subsegment of that audience somehow, some way, as a subscriber, email subscriber, YouTube subscriber, podcast subscriber. And then the hope is that they come back to the well and they keep feeding at my content, and then I advertise to them something that I think would be interesting to them. Knowing full well that it's kind of like a funnel, but it's not really a funnel, because you know this, Dennis, you don't need a massive audience. Like I have millions. You just need a tiny little fragment of the audience to buy what you have to buy. But having a big audience doesn't equal purchase intent. So the hardest thing in the world is to do the research and figure out what they're interested in buying. And I have not cracked that nut, which is the whole reason why my becoming well-known product did not sell very well. I think if it was free, it would have sold like crazy. Or if it was 50 bucks, or instead of 2,000. And so more of the story in the grand scheme of marketing, research shows an interest, but it doesn't mean they're gonna actually step forward and be a buyer. And that's a nut that's very hard to crack. And as an entrepreneur, you try stuff, it doesn't work, you try other stuff. Eventually you hit a couple of home runs.
Mike, one of the things that impresses me so much about you, among many things, is that you're putting content out there in arguably the most competitive space. How many YouTube channels and social media experts are out there putting all that stuff out there for free, yet Mike, as a self-made millionaire, is monetizing with the top subscription, the top conference, right? He's making millions, not like millions is like the main measure of the thing, but he's monetizing social media marketing better than anyone I know on the planet in terms of like professional development when there's so much content out there. So what I want to know, Mike, is how is it that, I mean, you mentioned, so you alluded briefly, like you put a bunch of free content out there and then people will eventually sign up for something, but there's so many people out there that want to launch a course, that want to have a conference, that want to do coaching, that want to start a blog, and they see where you are and think, that's so much of a cliff, I don't think that's even possible. How does, is a Mike Stelzner even possible today with the amount of competition?
It's a wonderful question. If we come back to data as the first question, like if you want to do anything, you have to ask people, would they be interested in that something? So let's say you want to do a conference. You could survey people and ask them their interest level in attending a conference put on by you on this topic, okay? Then they know it's going to cost money. You know, I don't normally ask that question, but that's a question legitimately you could ask. When I did my Becoming Well-Known product, I asked people if they were interested in becoming the top influencer in their space. And it turns out a lot of people were, but they weren't willing to do the work necessary to get there, okay?
I thought that was a fantastic program.
Yeah. And the people that went through it, it was a tough program. But what I meant by this is that, you know this, Dennis, everybody wants things that they are not willing to work for. Everybody wants to have a 1 million subscriber YouTube channel in our industry, or they want to have 400,000 email subscribers or whatever, right? But they're not willing to actually put in the work. They want an easy button. There is no such thing as an easy button. So back to your earlier question, how do you get to where I am? You realize that I'm not an overnight success. I've been a serial entrepreneur since 1996, which is a long time.
We did the same thing with white papers.
Yes, but the moral
He was a white paper guy, I remember 20 years ago.
Here's
People
the
were
thing.
telling me all about him.
You got to try things, and some stuff works and some stuff doesn't, okay? You've known me, and I've started and stopped things over and over again. I had the Social Strategy Club last year. Started and stopped it, okay? I had the Becoming Well-Known, started and stopped it. I've done summits, I don't do them anymore, okay? So the idea is you have to like, nothing ventured, nothing gained is my philosophy, but if you venture with data and you venture with insights, the likelihood of it being successful is greater. The hardest thing in the world is to say, I have an audience over here that's interested in marketing and social, and I want to go over here, which is Web3 and NFTs and DAOs and crypto and social tokens, which I know, I listened to the interview that you did with Schaefer. I know your views on these things, but your views are most of the world's views, right? Like how do you get someone, how do you get someone to go from here to here, right? Well, guess what? It's not easy, right? Doesn't matter how big your audience is.
Right.
I toured the San Diego Convention Center a couple of months ago, and I had almost half of it, okay? And I said, I'll take it, okay? Because I'm launching a conference in 2 weeks, and I was preparing for 3,000 people. Guess how many people are going to show up? Less than 200.
Wow.
Less than 200. And the reason why is because I realized I was missing a very important piece of the pie, which is that my audience doesn't give a crap about Web3 yet. I realized I was too early, okay? And I realized I hadn't developed a big enough audience for me to be able to pull off what I've done for social media marketing world, which is taking up a big chunk of this convention center and applying it over there. And this is the entrepreneurial's dilemma, right? Which is you think you're successful over here, you're going to automatically be successful over here. That ain't true. You got to work it. You got to be known for it. You got to put in your chops. It could take years. It took me years. I started Social Media Examiner in 2009. The first conference was in 2013. It took me 4 years.
So just because you're good at basketball doesn't mean you're good at football.
Or golf.
But then I see a lot of entrepreneurs that have toiled at something for many years,
Yes.
and they're never going to go anywhere. And so when do they know it's time to pivot? Like, when did you know to pivot from white papers to social media marketing, which seems like a completely
It's a
huge
great
shift.
question. So I had a really successful business. I was the most well-known in the world at my craft.
Yeah.
I had written a book called Writing White Papers, and I had all the biggest businesses in the world lining up to hire me. So I took the funds from that business and I started an experiment.
Yeah.
This is the key word, experiment, meaning it could fail, okay? And it was called Social Media Examiner. And I gave it 90 days, okay? And I said, let's just start this little blog over here. Let's not even monetize it. Let's see what happens.
I remember those days.
Yeah.
We had a little conversation. You had like a get together in Vancouver or something, right?
Oh God, I don't even know. It feels like so long ago. It's
Okay.
possible. I would go to a lot of conferences.
Yeah.
So, but moral of the story is I started it in 2009 and it took off.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I got 10,000 subscribers in a couple of months. I started doing some online summits, which I had done in the white paper business world. Gary Vaynerchuk was my opener back in the early days, and it took off. It was like, wow, I had made more money and had more interest than I'd ever had before. You could sneeze back then and things were successful.
Yeah.
This is when things would go viral on Twitter, on Dig, on Facebook, when you could link out. So that's when I knew, and a year later, I shut the old business down, burned the bridges, and said I'm going all in on social marketing. But I wasn't gonna go there until I could prove out the model. So this whole crypto stuff, it's an experiment.
Yeah.
Might not work.
Yeah. A year ago, you were telling me to go big on crypto. And you were
I'm
actually
glad
right.
you didn't listen.
No, but for a moment, that was a bottom. You said if you're into crypto, now might be a good time to get in. I saw that Facebook post that you had,
Yeah.
and I bought a little bit. And I made a little bit of money on Ethereum, but then there was a much bigger
Yeah.
dip recently. So how do you not fool yourself, like you said, into looking at the data or having a blind spot and declaring a win when it's too early?
Okay, so this is where you take your data and then you look at like the macro data, okay? This is where search queries on Google are really valuable. You can use Google Trends to kind of look at what the trajectory is. This is also when you want to look for things that are harder to measure, like are a lot of people switching that used to be in this industry, are they going over into this industry? So I saw a lot of marketers moving into Web3 and deciding, putting a flag in the ground and say, I want to be known for this. For example, Brian Fanzo is a great example. Joe Polizzi is another example. Mark Schaefer to a lesser extent, right?
Yeah.
So you start to see these people deciding that they're going to get into this space. They see what I see. This is a bit of a confirmation. But then you look at the Gartner hype curve, and the Gartner hype curve, all innovation goes through a peak of inflated expectations where it's at its highest, which is where we were with NFTs literally last October, okay? And then it goes into the trough of disillusionment. And as it enters into the trough of disillusionment, and realize this cycle happens for all innovation, okay? Those that make it through, all of a sudden, can survive the long trajectory ahead. So I'm not giving up on Web3.
Now, you spent a lot of money on NFTs.
A lot. And they're going to be, by the way, I own 7 Moonbirds, okay? And that's worth a lot of freaking money. But I will tell you that I'm not selling, I'm holding, I'm going long. And I'm not giving up on Web3. For me, it's a hobby. It's a longer term experiment. My podcast will continue and I will see what happens. I still believe it's the future, but we're early.
Now let's shift gears and talk about SEO. So Mike says that socialmediaexaminer.com, which is a huge website, it's like DR83 and you have millions of visitors per month, that very little of your traffic actually starts from the homepage. And it comes in from Google on particular articles on particular topics. And I know personally that you're very choosy about what the headlines are of these articles and what those particular topics are. Give us some insight into your mind on how you decide how to structure that for those of us that are trying to grow our content library, trying to decide what should we write about, how do we know what's going to work?
First of all, I will not claim that I understand Google's algorithms or that I am an SEO guy, okay? But I will tell you that I know that what we're known for is how to. And I know that generally speaking, when industries innovate new things, everybody wants to know how to do it. So the essence of what we create is how-to content. How do I make an Instagram reel? How do I do shorts, YouTube shorts? How do I? And there's a bazillion how do I's. So I have a team who works for me, who is looking for the new innovations, the new technical innovations being launched by TikTok and every other. And we kind of decide, as a marketer, the audience for this, right? Because we want to create content designed to attract the right audience, right? We don't want the general consumer who wants to do a reel. We want the marketer. So we will create how to use Instagram Reels to generate more leads. You understand where I'm going? So we add that little distinction on it in order to actually attract the right audience, right? We also have to create content that's designed to feed our existing audience, right? Those 400,000+ email subscribers. But almost all of our stuff is X ways or how to. Because we believe that is what we're about. We're how to. We're not like gonna lay out the strategy. We're gonna lay out the tactics. If you want the strategy, that's where we come to people like you, because we're not strategists. I personally am a strategist, but I'm not a social marketing strategist. Does that make sense? So we attract the people that wanna learn how to do it. They sample our work, they say it's great, and hopefully they subscribe and want more of it. It's that simple.
Now a difficult question for most people. How do you know when to make that content free, like what's on your blog, versus what people have to pay for, or it's in the membership, or maybe they have to come to a conference?
I think you know the answer to this, Dennis. You make it all free. And the reason you make it all free is because there's so much more where that came from, is how others are gonna perceive it, okay? So when you sell information, the difference is you're crafting it in a course in an organized fashion where like you can only teach so much in a 15-minute video. You can only teach so much in an article. You can only teach so much in a 45-minute podcast interview. People want to get their taste buds percolated. It's like the free sample at the restaurant. But they know if they sit down with the chef, they can actually have a really good meal. And the idea is if they come to my conference or they purchase my society membership where we have deeper training and community, that's what people are willing to pay for. Because the truth is that you can find everything you want for free on YouTube and Google right now. There's nothing you can't learn for free. What people are willing to pay for is structure, is guidance, is hand-holding. That's my take. What do you think?
You were just with Ryan Deiss, and he offered a $40,000 program that you were considering buying. You mentioned Joe Pulizzi, who's content marketing world. So I would argue that Mike is in the top 0.001% of people that make content professionally and make money off of it. I think that's pretty hard to argue. Given that's the case, I wanted to know, I always want to ask the top minds like where they think things are going. So there's so many content marketers out there talking about producing content, giving conflicting ideas about how to make content. But from someone like you in that unique position, you are credibly able to give advice. What is your, like if we were to look inside your brain and x-ray it, what is your structure of content and producing content? Mike Stelzner is one of the top content marketers. Where is content going?
So we live in a short attention span era, and you all are gonna think I'm gonna say it's about short form content, and I'm here to tell you that's not true, okay? Short form content is simply just the person with the sign on the intersection when you turn into your neighborhood every week saying that there's a house for sale or there's a restaurant that sells pizza, okay? So what I'm here to tell you is that while it's true we get entertained by short form media, in the case of Reels and TikTok and Shorts, I believe that people want depth. And I believe it's gonna go back to depth. And depth is something that would be like a 2,000-word article, or something like a 30-minute video, or something like a 45-minute podcast, because everybody can get little dopamine hits all day long watching something really short. But that's never gonna teach them a damn thing. So I'm here to tell you that those that stay with the long form and can figure out how to use the short form to get them to the long form, I feel like that's gonna be where the future's at. And we have not mastered short form video here at Social Media Examiner because we're a long form media company. I'm in the business of creating long form media, and I'm here to tell you, there's plenty of people that still want that. And if anything, they're gonna want more of it, because maybe they'll watch a reel and someone says, you need to use short form video. Guess what? They're not gonna learn that from watching reels. They're gonna need to actually go get trained by somebody who knows how to teach them how to do reels, and that's not gonna take 15 seconds.
That's right.
That's my take. What do you think?
I think I need a gorilla suit, but that's gonna drive people to the long form content. I feel that all this short form social media ADD stuff is really like teasers or movie trailers, but you still need the movie. Like these are all different ways 100%. To get people to the movie. The key is still the movie.
That is 100%
It's still the
true.
relationship. It's still people getting together. One of my mentors was the CEO of American Airlines. And back when the internet became kind of a thing in 1997, I told him, I said, aren't we afraid? He said, young son, you can build the website for American Airlines. We started selling tickets. And I said, aren't you afraid that people are going to be meeting online and having phone calls and 1-800-conferencecall.com and all that and not be flying? And he said, no, the more connection, the more people actually want to meet, the more people actually want to go see the Eiffel Tower instead of just looking at a picture of the Eiffel Tower. The more people that I've met so many people through social media marketing, well, online in the Facebook group, and I want to meet them in person.
100%, yeah, 100%. So the mega trend here is right now, all the social platforms are trying to essentially program you down a funnel that is just a bunch of stuff from people you don't know who they are because they're struggling to keep you on the platform.
Yeah.
That's the honest truth, okay?
Yeah.
Because nobody cares anymore about like seeing what your friends posted supposedly, right? Or they can't monetize that anymore is the honest truth, right?
Yeah.
So what they're doing now is just feeding you all day long with, I see crazy fishing videos, you know what I mean? Or construction accidents, and what you see might be
That's your
something
guilty
different.
pleasure.
Yeah, but it's like, it's just, I find it fascinating. But guess what? I'm not learning a damn thing. And I like to learn.
Is that the devolution of society now that the feed's just kids are gonna eat junk food because that's kind of what they prepare? Or will prefer?
I don't know. I mean, like, you look at what Be Real is doing. You know what Be Real is? You know what the Be Real platform? Be Real is from France. And it's literally, once a day they ping you, you have 2 minutes to take a picture of where you are, and it takes a front and back picture,
These kids
and that's
are all
it.
over it. Okay.
And I'm on it, my kids got me on it, okay? But this is the antithesis to Instagram.
Yeah.
So what did Instagram do? They just came out with a feature that models Be Real, because they realized with Instagram, it's all about making this look like we're not actually at a convention center, but at some fabulous resort, right? And with Be Real, there's no hiding it because it takes both pictures at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just real, okay? So I think we're gonna move back towards an era. People want authenticity and they want to see the real stuff, which means more long form content, more live video, more interviews, more realness, more not editing out the mistakes, that kind of stuff.
So Michael's done a ton of interviews. What kinds of questions do you wish that you were asked?
I think why questions are so important. Why? Blah, just fill in the blank, because a lot of people are skeptical when you're talking about something. And if you say why, then it forces the brain to say, all right, well, here's some reasons why. Ask me a why question.
Why are you doing social media marketing world?
Because I've always done it and it makes a lot of money for me.
That's a good answer.
But ask me why am I here right now?
Yeah, why are you here?
I'm here at a different conference that's not my own conference. And the reason I'm here, the reason I go to conferences, is not what a lot of people might think. Sometimes I come here to find new talent to get on my podcast. Sometimes I come here to have serendipitous connections with old friends, like what we're doing right now. I didn't know you were going to be here. Other times I come here because I need to get an escape from my day-to-day operations as the CEO of a media company. And this gives me a chance to actually use a side of my brain that I don't get to use very often, because my schedule is packed every day of the week. So I'm here just to see what might happen. And sometimes that's why we do things, just to break a pattern and just to see what might happen.
If I were to ask my friends, what do you think the CEO of a media company does, who is in charge of social media marketing world and social media, they might think that you're just hanging out on social media all day long, like live streaming.
Yeah.
But what actually is going on that other people who are not in the industry that wouldn't realize on what Michael Stelzner actually does? Like how you actually prioritize your time, how you actually think about the world.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm always very strategic. So like, remember I told you earlier that I'm doing research, right? So that research that just came together, I am trying to figure out, all right, who do I need to get into the pipeline of the different content that we create to be able to fulfill the needs of my customers, because they're always changing. But what people might not realize about me is that I'm not actually active on social media at all.
I think that's hilarious.
I'm not, because
Now you went live every day on Facebook for quite a while just to show you could.
I mean, I do Twitter Spaces for Web3 once a week, but that's with a goal and a strategic intent. I don't do anything unless there's a really strong reason behind it, or unless it's part of an activity that will get me where I want to go.
Now you were big on Clubhouse a year ago, and I remember everyone in the room, in the Clubhouse room, you said like on a scale of 1 to 10, and almost everyone said like 9 or 10, like this was the thing, that it wasn't a fad, that the traffic was going to keep going.
Yeah, so here's the thing, okay, Clubhouse, everything leads to something else. That's how I look at things, right? So I'm here, and it's led to conversations with you and other people that are gonna lead to things I can't even imagine. Clubhouse happened during the middle of the pandemic. It started a new thing, which we call social audio, which is kind of like talk shows, but it was desperately needed for us to be able to come together and interact with each other. And it's led to Twitter Spaces now, which are the predominant way people interact. But You know, even though I was very active on Web3 and a lot of us were very active, I mean, in Clubhouse, the struggle is that when the world opened back up, all of a sudden, we went back to our old patterns. But what ended up happening was Twitter Spaces emerged from it. And what you may not know, Twitter Spaces is like the main way people in the Web3 space commune.
Oh.
It's the main way that people who have NFT projects and metaverse projects and social tokens actually meet. It's the space that they go to have real, true engagement all the time, almost nonstop. So that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Clubhouse. You understand?
Yeah.
So that's why I started a show on Twitter Spaces
Oh, okay.
called Web3 for Beginners. And I do it with a gal named Heather Parody, and it's just onboarding people into the world of Web3. I don't know, we've gone down some rabbit trails, but moral of the story is like trends sometimes happen for a long time, sometimes they happen for a short time. Social audio was a little bit of a blip, but I feel like it's a new media that will never go away, which is live audio.
Fantastic. Michael Stelzner, everybody, on the Coach U Show. Thank you so much, Michael, for your time. How do people find you?
Socialmediaexaminer.com. You can find everything. Twitter, Mike_Stelzner.
Fantastic. Thank you guys, everyone. Give us a like and follow.